Hello, hello, hello. Right, I don't know, I said hello 3 times. That time I usually say 2 times, but I decided to say it three. I don't know what I'm saying. I've been saying hello a lot too. I don't know why I do that, but right now it is 10 a.m. and I'm just enjoying myself, and I'm letting my headset. I usually like to let my headset in the morning because, well, I've been pretty relaxed. I've been listening to my body more often, and I've been actually listening to my body a lot more in comparison to what I usually do. And I mean, I guess you can kind of like go back into like the concept I was thinking about like harmonization with particular uh, self, like the self and whatnot, and that is a form of harmonization with the self. And I guess due to my current understanding, I think it's important harmonization and being in line with truth to become more fluid with what reality is presenting itself as at that given moment in time and whatnot. So being less forceful is what I'm trying to say, in a very eloquent way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, like I constantly think about that kind of stuff, but I was also looking at different educations of. I kind of parsed through a lot of different formations of the law of attraction, how it manifests in the physical world and whatnot, but I didn't really look at more complex systems and what, I mean, there could be edge cases in which, like, well, the thing is, like, the only way the law of attraction works is if you are in line with your truth and whatnot, right? You can't just say, I want a car to pop up there. The thing is, like, you have to look at yourself and say, it's like, okay, well, like, if you're thinking about like a Bugatti, you can actually teleport yourself into the perspective of the Bugatti and what it requires to have one, because well, I mean, you can extrapolate out towards, like, with the value of it. Okay, so you have to have like this much money to have it, to even own it to begin with, right? Because it requires a certain amount of quote unquote energy, and you have to like force that energy into a particular place to manifest that much energy or money. I guess people, again, people call everything as energy and whatnot, so I guess that's a good way of saying that, or information, whatever you want to call it. That has a particular value in the world. Of course, you can find it in the real world, but the likelihood of that ever happening is very low. Just due to the like, I'm just trying to like think of everything as energy and whatnot now, because it is a very useful way of thinking about it, just information. Or I usually just think of everything. I just think of everything as a language, and I use mathematics as my homomorphism between all languages that I can perceive as of now. Like it's like a homomorphism between English and French. They obviously have a lot of connections. You can also think about like homomorphisms, like what I was doing in my other video of homomorphisms between particular subjects like psychology and physics. They actually have a lot more homomorphisms than a lot of people would actually see, and quote unquote quotations or connections, or connection points and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, you see. If you get into like abstract algebra, they use homomorphisms a lot, and they just basically say, if this homomorphism exists and this line of logic exists with this particular manifestation of a homomorphism, then it suffices for all other logical structures that are of that same structure and whatnot. So yeah, homomorphisms are just like, I mean, you can translate into like the reality and whatnot, and it's just like it's subjectivity, right? It's basically subjectivity, and all homomorphisms add up to the objective profile of that particular thing that we're looking at from different perspectives and whatnot. Like I guess you can look at a homomorphism of like another example of a homomorphism, just looking at in the physical world. You could just look at things from different angles. Another homomorphism would be like if you have a video game and you need to apply like a rotation matrix to for a camera or whatever, that's a homomorphism, because it's again just looking at things from a different angle, but it's the same thing but with a different perspective and whatnot. That's basically what a homomorphism is in mathematics, and it's very useful, very useful. But yes, I don't know why I was thinking about homomorphisms, but I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, basically what I was doing was applying my concept of homomorphisms and whatnot, and translating it between different subjects and their actual abstracted quantitative values that a lot of people probably don't see, but they're basically the same. By playing polymorphisms, you can actually, you can look at the cases and the edge cases that the law of attraction actually can apply to, by just abstracting everything and turning into a value of some sorts, you know. Yeah, so I mean it's useful and whatnot, you know, like applying it to a spectrum, like negative and just polarities and whatnot. And I always have seen everything as a spectrum, and it is pretty true. Like the polarity, and you can think of complements in the spectrum and all that. So I guess that's just how my math brain applies everything to the world and all that. But I was thinking about like like where when you think of the law of attraction, you're like, oh, if I visualize this, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it is a form of visualization and an input of energy into the system to then it's just basically like if you want to be more fluid with the world, you just have to work with the quote unquote flow of energy or information in the system that you're kind of implanted in, and that involves the physical world as well. But there's also unseen energy, like, thoughts are a form of energy that people can just think of it like that. And it's kind of like an updraft or something. I don't know, like let's say you're like, what's a better, you can think of it as a force, I guess. You can also think of it as a force. You can map it to like a metaphysical kind of physical constraint within a given system as well, but you could think of it as a force. I think that's what I would think of it as, because my physics brain likes to think of it like stuff like that. Like the quote unquote truth can be a vector, and you can use that vector as a launching point to a given place that you want to be in, and you can think of the reason why you can't just envision a car and have it in your hands is because the truth vectors are not aligned and whatnot. If the truth vector is pointed towards you and your truth vector is pointing towards it, or if your truth vectors are in the same direction, then eventually you will make it to that it's like you can kind of like abstract it to a vector and whatnot in space and you can when I mean by a truth vector, it's like I don't know how many dimensions you would have it in, like the car has a certain characteristics and certain truths that apply to it. One truth is that it in this world it has a certain amount of capital value, and like the likelihood of it just sitting in a place with its title and whatnot, and you being able to just have it for free is very unlikely, just because of the truth that its value is so high, and the world tends to work off of capitalism, and nobody would do that with their objective function that they work off of. So that's the reason why you can't just like I did talk about this earlier. Requires a certain amount of energy input into the same direction as the truth vector as that particular component. So that being in the world, and that once you have aligned your truth vector with it, and have become the complement of its environment to a degree, the complement of its environment, or a component of the complement of its environment, then yes, you can have those things and whatnot if you want to think of it like that. But I was going there because it's like going into the flow. Like there's an energy. You can think of it like it's ley lines and whatnot, and people tend to get into like quote unquote magic with a CK at the end, or a K at the end, I guess would be the right way to say it. And I think about it sometimes, but like I don't know. Like people tend to add a lot of, what's the word? I don't know. They tend to ornate it a lot. They tend to make it look more ornate than it actually is, I guess. Ornate. I don't know. They try to make it a little more profound than it actually is, even though it's just a physical property of the world and whatnot. And I don't know. I just think it's interesting and all that. And the law of attraction is also kind of cool to some degree. Yeah, I mean, like you can also think of like, again, you can go back to like simpler manifestations within systems and whatnot that require the same thing that I was talking about, like a quote unquote truth vector, the truth vector of a given, like, between an electron and a proton. The truth vectors are aimed in, that direction. They're going with the flow of quote unquote energy. It's not really imposing any energy in itself because it's not complex or anything. So the field is applying the force for it. And I guess you could also think of that because you have multiple fields that you're applying yourself to that kind of go in that direction as that. And also once you have kind of modified those fields associated with that object that you want in this world, it can occur. But then there are other things that require an infinite amount of energy because of the fact that the truth vectors are so misaligned from each other. Like your truth vector may not be able to modify those particular components to then come up with something that's almost inconceivable to the mind to some degree. Working off of I guess that was I don't know what I was talking about that, but yeah, I mean, I just felt like kind of expounding on that a little bit more because I was a little bit brief on like the edge cases that in which that it may seem impossible to quote unquote manifest certain things that would, even if you put, if you put an infinite amount of energy into it, obviously it would, because but obviously infinite energy doesn't occur. It actually, anything they can possibly imagine, I don't think would require infinite energy, but it definitely would tend towards an infinite amount of energy for some things. Like, I don't know, it's like inconceivable for most people. It's like, oh, I want to fly to Pluto. It's like, well, fuck, good luck with that. Good luck actually inputting the amount of energy to actually build a rocket that can do that, and a tank, and and the amount of time it would take to get there and all that, and just because you're kind of constrained within this system that we live in, this physical world, quote unquote physical world. Of course, you're a god and can do anything, but yeah, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know. I mean, like, you can. Yeah, I don't know. I probably shouldn't think about this too much because I may make my head burn up a little bit too much, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I think it's just good to think outside of the bounds of what most people would perceive as impossible and whatnot, because you never know. There are a lot of examples in mathematics and physics as well where people just thought it would be absolute. Well, I can only think of like one really decent example, like imaginary numbers. Like, they never thought that would actually be something that would exist in their world that they'd utilize, and they happen to use it all the time. In the world, and but I don't know. Like, it's just a law. The better way is to actually say that. I don't even know how how they define it. Oh, well, it's a very simple way. It's a manifestation of what I was basically saying. That not manifestation. Example. I keep saying manifestation a lot, but So basically, law of attraction. I don't even know why I didn't look at the actual definition. Light Sister talked about it, but I didn't look at it on Google. But it's obviously new thought philosophy that's just positive thoughts and actions leads to positive outcomes and whatnot. While negative thoughts and actions lead to negative outcomes. That is a form of basically a truth vector to some extent, but how would you even actually be able to explain that through the framework that I was using? I actually, yeah, that is true, because the truth vector is the same as the other, because you're a reflection of the positive that you've created in your mind. It's another way of like kind of looking at it as a set of fields that you affect in the world, and the truth vector associated to all of those fields, it would be like the sum of those components, and then you'd have a vector pointing towards it, and then it would have a vector pointing towards you because you're attracting that particular field. You'd actually just say it is a complement of it, obviously, which is why they point towards each other, their opposite directions, creating a null value. So of course it is a complement. It's just, you're just becoming the supposed complement of that particular let's say exists reality, basically, of you being the reality of it and it being the reality of you, basically. And those truth vectors are the complement of each other because you're the reality of it being the truth vector for being the truth of it, and then the other way around, which is the inverse of that vector, if that kind of makes sense. At least that's how I would actually conceive it as. So it's just another way of using vectors and field theory. People don't. You can actually, it's interesting. You can actually apply field theory to some of these concepts that people use nowadays. But I don't think people really think about mathematizing everything. I like thinking about mathematizing everything because my brain wants to encapsulate everything in its own mind and see these patterns as they are through a more clean framework that without all of the fancy words that people like using that make them seem, I don't know, they kind of like convolute everything when it's really not that convoluted. They just have to use simple mathematical and logical frameworks to then make it more clear for the mind to see. But at the same time, I don't think people usually, mathematics is just another form of language, just much cleaner language, without all the unnecessary homomorphisms or what's the other word? Synonyms, homomorphisms, synonyms, and whatnot. So, and I'm just using one standard homomorphism that tends to work in my mind because I think spatially, and that spatial homomorphism is very, very, very useful to have in this world. So that was cool and all. I mean that then kind of like the truth vectors and whatnot, and what I was just talking about, like the components of the truth vectors as well, or the inverse, or whatever you want to call it. Also, I guess I was kind of sort of applying the non-dualism to a degree because of reality reflecting on itself and being the inverse of the truth vector of that particular being and whatnot. So complements and the microcosm, macrocosm, and all that. So it is still it's still a kind of derived from just the oneness. God is all and all is God and all that, and it's just nice being able to see the mathematical ramifications of some of these things that spiritualists like talking about. So what else was I thinking about? Oh yeah, I guess I was talking about harmony and all that too. That's a form of harmony too, because the truth vectors are aligned with each other. Like I said, the truth vectors and it's kind of interesting. I guess the other thing is, like, why does it... I don't want to think about that too much, actually, about... It's interesting. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to think about this. I think my brain is trying to spatialize everything, but everything beyond, like, within the human mind can only do so much. And my mind thinks it can do everything. It doesn't think it's God or anything, but it just it likes looking at all of the possible perceptions that God can see to create the homomorphisms and create an objective framework. But I don't know if I provide enough examples. You can well, I mean, I can come up with an infinite amount of examples. What I typically do is when I think about not even contrived examples. It's just like when you look at a law, I don't think like people. When I think of a law, I'm talking about like a law of reality, not physical reality, but a law of all reality pertaining to abstractions and mathematical law that I can see right now, and I just kind of start in a random place and extrapolate that way. And I also kind of I like to zoom in and out of the abstraction to see if I can look at more micro and macro scale manifestations of those patterns that I'm seeing. But yeah. Yeah, I went back to like the example of like a particle and whatnot, and also like, you know, a lot of people would probably talk about more real world things like warfare and all that, and how like the truth vector is obviously aligned with those, so there tends to be a lot of chaos, and that's another thing that happens. Obviously, the opposite of chaos is aligned information, completely aligned information, pure structure that tends to be in flow with itself. It looks like a lot of reality tends to flow towards structure, but it also tends towards the other way. And at least when you look at the universe, it's just that you have to put energy into the system to create structure. It seems like to quote unquote create aligned harmony, you do have to align the truth vector with the truth vector of every other possible thing. And I don't want to model. I want to, but I know like if I do that, my brain would probably go in overload to create some kind of abstraction for chaos and all that. And the simplest way to just think of it is just like the opposite of information, just no information at all, or all that stuff. Or like in thermodynamics, they tend to use. They think the same way. They use information theory. I think they finally just gave up on like thinking of everything as energy, and they kind of like changed their mental paradigm to just think of everything as information. So that's why you have a lot of physicists that are thinking about the world as more of a simulation now. You have Leonard Susskind and a bunch of other people that have had ran into a lot of issues with black holes and whatnot, and they have kind of really created a holographic theory of some sorts. I don't really know what that means or like how they even came up with that, but I think it was something to do with the black hole's information not being represented within it, and because a singularity is null information, so they decided that, well, shit, we can't do that, because then that would that would invalidate, or that, what's the other word, that would contradict with the law of the conservation of energy, or the conservation of information. They're interchangeable at this point. So physicists were like, well, I guess we could just make a shell with all the information inside of it, which represents the singularity. And they're like, wait a second. What if all of reality is like that? What if... because, like, you're going from, like, three-dimensional sphere or two-dimensional object into a one-dimensional singularity, a point, versus 2 dimensions, and then wait, no, that's 0 dimensions. I don't know. It's representing, or is it 2 to 3D? I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was like, you know, our reality is 3D, so then the information encapsulating everything is 4-dimensional. Or sorry, our reality is 4D, so everything is 5D, which is why spiritualists talk about the 5th dimension, and everything being in 5D, and how time can't be represented in the 5D because there's another variable which can map to time. That kind of makes sense if you modify it. Yeah, anyways, there's nothing. So if, like, at least when I think about different dimensions, I fix the whatever dimensions in, so 4 dimensions. So I can take like space, 3D space, and then a time. Obviously that's a given like point in space of time, so that's a given point. And then obviously, like, kind of like modifying all of that through whatever, you can just like input different variables for that, all fixed, and then you start using the scrubber variable for things outside of that, and then you just kind of like look at all possible permutations for that dimension, and it happens to be mappable or sorry, it would be the other way around. You'd fix that variable, so, and then you can modify all possible space and time variables to then realize that when you fix that variable, you can look at all possible permutations, which can map to basically the quote unquote irrelevance of time, essentially, or some shit like that. I don't know. I don't want to think about 5 dimensions right now. That's above my pay grade. But yeah, fuck, man. Yeah. So I did my file for unemployment, and I tried doing healthcare and SNAPs and food benefits and all that, but they had the stupid website is having issues, and I just didn't feel like dealing with that, so I didn't want to call IT either. I was just annoyed. I know I'm so impatient with myself sometimes, but yeah, there's some days I'm just like, whatever. But yeah, I have my interview and all that, but just tomorrow. 2:30 tomorrow. Oh, shit. I still kind of just went around in circles because there's just a lot of examples that I just had to ease my brain a little bit to go through all the edge cases. And of course, it sounds like I'm using the proof by exhaustion and everything for the law of attraction, but I'm just trying to see if my mind can come up with any kind of speculations toward it, but it hasn't, and I just tried to, and well, it's more of I'm using it more of an abstracted framework for the law of attraction, so it's not. And that's funny because if you have like more of a physical mathematical mind, you'd assume that less people would be skeptical, like physicists, and I think mathematicians probably aren't as skeptical about it, but physicists, I guess, maybe more experimentalists and theoreticians tend to be skeptical about it because I don't know, they're kind of stuck in their own mathematical world. So they, I guess, like, if you're an applied mathematician, you're less likely to really be open towards the idea of the law of attraction as opposed to somebody that's more into just theory in general. So, yeah, that seems right. I should probably write this down more so I can kind of create a more clear framework. I mean, like I can apply vector analysis to all of it, or field theory analysis. Yeah. What else was I thinking about? I don't know. My brain is a little bit tired, sort of. I don't know. I just kind of went off track, and I think my head was going somewhere, and then I decided to divert somewhere else. Oh well. Yeah, my brain's just tired. It's been thinking for like the past week. It's been very manic recently. I don't know why. Because obviously it's because there's nothing better to, I guess would be the right way to say it, because I've been so busy for this summer, and now I'm just trying to find other things to do, and now when I sit down I just think that's the only place I can divert my energy to right now. I mean, there are other places too. I just like helping my brother with his programming and whatnot. But what was I? God, man, that's gonna bother me. I think it's gonna bother my mind for a while, and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I mean that I like the framework of using truth vectors as a abstraction for basically everything that I've been thinking about, like harmonization and wholeness and attracting things to then create wholeness within your internal reality you've created for yourself, and all that via non-duality. Because I mean, like, again, you can also think about like mathematics is like for there to be particular thing, there's also its negation. Like numbers, numbers have their own negation and all that too, and there's just everything. So a spectrum, basically, a spectrum. Yeah, I think I'm done thinking about that because I don't know. I really can't think of anything else outside of the connections I made within that, just to see if I could apply my understanding of my current understanding of mathematics. See if there's anything interesting out of it that I can extract a new kind of tool from it. But no, it's all stuff that I'm pretty much familiar with. So bye bye.